So yesterday, first of all, thank you for being here. This is a lot of white people in one room, which is worth noting. I mean, it's not a problem, but here it is. And I've been white all my life, so I kind of know what you're going through. Yesterday I had this usual panic, which is part of my process. And Cody texted me, and he asked the question, so how you doing? You good? How you feeling? And I mean, I was feeling like run. You know, I was looking at flights to South America. I don't want to do this. I like the part where you get asked to speak. You know, a couple months ago, because it's sort of affirming. Someone is saying that, you know, things you have to say might be worth listening to. And so that felt good. But then when it comes time to actually walk up here, it's just, I don't know. I just want to run. But I was also thinking about, so which kind of conversation do I have? Like, do I have the justice's love, reconciliation, togetherness? Or do I actually tell people what I'm actually thinking currently about justice? What was that? Someone said? Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was on city council and I was speaking to this Rotary Club, I said, I'll give you two options. One is I'll give you the boilerplate, things are great speech, or I can just tell you what I'm actually thinking. But I warn you, the what I'm actually thinking thing is kind of half conceived. It's more hunches than clear statements. And they wanted me to just sort of give them insight about what I'm thinking. So I thought that's what I would do. Is that okay? I think it seems fair that if you're going to listen to me, spend a little bit of time listening to me, that you have some sense of some of my influences. First influence, Muhammad Ali. I grew up in a family. My dad was in the military, and he was a boxer growing up, and so I loved boxing, watching boxing, and I fell in love with Muhammad Ali. My dad, being a military guy, did not really appreciate Muhammad Ali. He liked Floyd Patterson and Sugar Ray Robinson, upstanding brothers that kept their mouth shut. But I worshipped Ali. So you had this little white kid on some level being kind of radicalized by the Nation of Islam through Muhammad Ali. When you watch Ali, you learn more than just boxing. You know, you learn about America. So it was interesting that I was having these two really kind of paradoxical experiences of watching Ali and listening to every word that he was saying, and then also being in a military family where my dad was proud to be an American, and my dad showed up with a uniform at home. So it was I was in the belly of the beast. My next influence is I don't mean to make anybody feel uncomfortable, but it's Jesus. This is James Ensor's painting, Christ's Entry into Brussels in 1889. And what's interesting about this painting is that it scandalized the art world. It predates Expressionism, and the thing that scandalized the art world was that when you first look at it, you're not sure where Jesus is. But you'll notice that he's right here in the middle of the crowd. And this way of conceiving of this young revolutionary, I think, is more in line with really who he is. And I learned that mostly through the black church. I appreciate Cornel West being mentioned early on. I don't know if you've heard of Jeremiah Wright, Gardner C. Taylor, Johnny Skinner, Tom Skinner. I mean, the Martin King. There is a legacy of Christianity that is deep and rich and rooted in justice. And I basically cut my teeth on that. The next influence is jazz. That's Miles Davis, Dave Holland, Chick Corea. I don't know who that brother is, but Jazz is, as Cody said, I do a jazz program, but I grew up with jazz, and a lot of people think of jazz as like this little factory creating artifacts, when in fact jazz is a process. It's a way of collaborating, and it's almost like this big Hubble telescope that you're looking at the stars, and the stars are looking at you. It's hard, and that's why a lot of young jazz artists today hate the word jazz. Christian Scott calls it stretch music. Ahmad Jamal calls it black classical music. Nicholas Payton, if you follow him on Instagram, he usually is raging against white people, claiming jazz, and basically he calls it black African music. I mean, jazz is the legacy of the African American community. And Miles Davis was one of its predominant innovators. It's an important music, and if you don't really like it, I would encourage you just to at least reach for it a little bit. So these are the influences, I think, that form my thinking. I think it's fair to, if you're going to hear me put out some words, then where are you coming from? And that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from an obsession with boxing, an obsession with how the church, the black church, organized and utilized the life of Christ in their organizing, and then also jazz. You know who Adam Clayton Powell Jr. is? Famous congressman, famous minister. And at one point, this reporter saw him standing outside of a cafe in New York, and he was smoking a cigarette, drinking scotch. And this reporter came up and said, "Man, Adam Clayton Powell Jr., man, you got it all. You're a congressman, you're a minister, Concord Abyssinian. I mean, you got it all." And he took a drag off his cigarette, took a sip of his scotch, and said, "It pays to serve Jesus." So when Chelsea Conrad asked me to speak here, she gave me a word, and I like the word, and I've had a relationship with the word. I like David Littlejohn's word better last time, wonder, which I think is a fabulous word. It's a word that's really close to my heart. But when she gave me the word, the first thing I thought was, man, I dig words. Words are like these little ecosystems. They're amazing. And I immediately thought of the Helen Keller passage. We walked down the path to the well house, attracted by the fragrance of the honeysuckle which was covered. Someone was drawing water, and my teacher placed my hand under the spout. As the cool stream gushed over one hand, she spelled into the other the word water, first slowly, then rapidly. I stood still, my whole attention fixed upon the motion of her fingers. Suddenly, I felt a misty consciousness as of something forgotten, a thrill of returning thought, and somehow the mystery of language was revealed to me. I knew that W-A-T-E-R meant that wonderful, cool something that was flowing over my hand. That living word awakened my soul, gave it light, hope, joy, set it free. There were barriers still, it is true, but barriers that could in time be swept away. I left the well house eager to learn. Everything had a name, and each name gave birth to a new thought. As we returned to the house, every object which I touched seemed to quiver with life. That was because I saw everything with the strange new sight that had come to me. I learned a great many new words that day. I do not remember what they all were, but I do know that mother, father, sister, teacher were among them. Words that were to make the world blossom for me, like Aaron's rod with flowers. It would have been difficult to find a happier child than I was as I lay in my bed at the close of that day and lived over the joys it had brought me, and for the first time longed for a new day to come. So the experience of words, the word wonder is not just a sign or a label, but it's like an ecosystem. It's like a reality. And I wondered, what it was like to be pre-literate like Helen Keller, and then to enter into the world of words, and then to reclaim those words. A lot of the words we use are just kind of they're flat, right? We don't have a really strong connection with them. My first experience with really understanding the power of a word was when I was in second grade. In second grade, that's like 7 years old. I put the F word on the bathroom wall. And this was, and I had a vague notion of what it meant. I had some theories, but what I did know is that the F word, if you either wrote it out or said it, it caused adults to come unglued. I mean, so just this little word. I wasn't destroying anything. I wasn't hitting anybody. I wasn't spitting or fighting or biting or any of that kind of stuff. I just said that word and boom, there was trouble all throughout the system. And in this case, my teacher wrote all the other words that I'd put down and put it in a sealed envelope and then asked me to take it home to my mother. And as we were driving home, usually I took the bus, but this day my mother came and personally retrieved me. I was sitting between or in the back seat between, my mother was right here, my dad was right here, and she had the letter, and she pointed, she says, "Do you know what that word was?" And she was pointing to the F word. And I'm like, "No. I mean, kinda, but no." And so the next day, our van driver explained what the F word meant to me, or what it means. And I mean, that was mind-blowing. I have a younger sister, so I know my dad had done that twice. I mean, trying to think of my grandparents doing that, it was like way too much. I mean, this was like a clear Dave Chappelle moment for me. So words are powerful. If I said the word, fuck you, now it got recorded. You have a strong reaction in your body, or some kind of reaction. Or if I say I love you, usually in relationships, there's always this kind of back and forth, kind of intuition about when you say it, or if I say it, then you say it back. So these words are like this is not just language. This is like part of being conscious and human and whole. There's a strong correlation between illiteracy and violence. When you're not able to actually put some words out, then something kind of difficult happens within inside of you. I feel like jazz is also the energy. It doesn't have words, but it has the energy that fills what words mean and what they are. So having said all that, and I come to the word justice. And justice just feels, it doesn't move us. It just doesn't move us. And to some extent, I have to say white people. Justice is a concept. It's like saying doorbell. The doorbell has even a little bit more energy to it than justice. You can kind of imagine it. You can hear the sound. But justice is just an idea. I don't know if we really have laid claim to any kind of direct experience to justice. I know we were all asked to put our ideas about what justice is. It's love. It's community. What are some other ones to put down? I mean, what did you put down?
Right, what's wrong?
Knowing what's right or wrong. Truth.
Awareness.
What's that? Equity? Empathy. Equity. So there's this idea, justice is important. It's kind of interesting that I'm speaking in the same city where yesterday was the 56th anniversary of Martin King's speech, where he kind of outed Chattanooga, and he longed for the day when justice or freedom would ring on Lookout. for white people, it's just a kind of an idea and it's a concept, you know. And the way in which we treat justice, it's sort of like date night with poor people. It's just this one-off experience. So given the fact that we struggle with wanting to connect with a word that we don't necessarily connect with, that we just have ourselves caught in our brains, and that I could have spent some time here just sort of giving you a new definition of what justice is. And that's probably a temptation for any presenter, is to go directly to the dictionary and tell you, what the definition is. And then you kind of fake yourself out thinking you know something about the word by knowing the definition. I mean, going to the dictionary for words is a little bit like getting nutrition advice from the FDA. I mean, there's some validity there, but that's not really where words come from. Words come from the community. They come from experience. They come from emotion. So we admit, let's say that the word justice is kind of alien to us. And I do want to say also this: in the black community, justice plays differently because it's a longing. It's in your body. It's what you can see. So when Martin King said, "I have a dream," he was actually employing a device that Langston Hughes, the poet, had used repeatedly in his poetry. That there was a dream, there was a vision that the community was longing for. So the task of for people who are not connected to the word, of building some feeling for the word, it's like beautifying your eye. We oftentimes say that the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and not discounting personal preference. Usually, what I think that means is that you cultivate a way of seeing the world, that you find the beauty in everything that you see. And beauty isn't just loveliness. Beauty can be hard looking. Beauty can be tragedy. So how do you cultivate a capacity that makes you more sensitive, that makes you more detailed, more nuanced? I mean, poetry. Straight up poetry is a language against which you have no defenses. It disarms you. And so to read poetry, to write poetry, is to practice that muscle of beautifying your eyes. Let me read you a couple poems. Here's one. God says yes to me. I asked God if it was okay to be melodramatic, and she said yes. I asked her if it was okay to be short, and she said it sure is. I asked her if I could wear nail polish or not wear nail polish. And she said, honey, she calls me that sometimes. She said, you can do just exactly what you want to. Thanks, God, I said. And is it even okay if I don't paragraph my letters? Sweet cakes, God says. Who knows where she picked that up? What I'm telling you is yes, yes, yes. That's Kaylin Haught. So immediately your brain goes from the discursive brain more in your body, right? A little bit. Another poem by Mary Oliver. Everything that was broken has forgotten its brokenness. I live now in a sky house. Through every window, the sun. Also, your presence. Our touching, our stories, earthly and holy both. How can this be? But it is. Every day has something in it whose name is forever. So this poem is calling you into the kind of the presence of things, not just the meaning of things, right? Everything that was broken has forgotten its brokenness. Only in poetry are you able to say things like that. And here's another Mary Oliver poem, The World I Live In. I have refused to live locked in the orderly house of reasons and proofs. The world I live in and believe in is wider than that. And anyway, what's wrong with maybe? You wouldn't believe what once or twice I have seen. I'll just tell you this. Only if there are angels in your head will you ever possibly see one. Only if there are angels in your head will you ever possibly see one. Do people in this room read poetry? Not many? I know I went to school at Sewanee and I was an English major. So my degree is in English, so I'm not qualified to do anything, but I just jump into everything. But the interesting thing about poetry is it does kind of disengage the discursive brain that always wants to know what things mean. And poetry allows you to just be more present with things. You're not going to ever know a person by reading their bio. It doesn't really give you a sense. You know, you have to meet them. And poetry allows you to meet yourself, the experience around you, and even possibly this idea of justice and what that is. So, what would it look like to reclaim, to exercise as a group of people in this room, to build capacity for the word justice? What would we do? I like to use the artistic model of how a person develops as a musician. And what I would say is that you have to develop and learn in three different ways. One is personally, another is relationally, and then the third would be collaboratively. One of the first things that I think is very important is to choose your instrument. And the instrument is you. The instrument is you. Developing your own voice, developing your own sense of the world, interrogating what you've experienced and what you think. We spend more time interrogating the thoughts and meaning of other people. And I think it's very important to interrogate one's own, right? Finding your own voice is a difficult and challenging process. Miles Davis said it takes a long time to learn how to play like yourself. It takes a long time to develop your own unique sense of who you are. That's critical. So if we're going to get to justice, if we're going to develop a way in which we can build a more equitable, peaceful world, we have to actually show up as human beings. I think another thing is you have to learn how to play with others, and not just people who think like you. A lot of times churches are organized around being, and even community groups, they all think alike. And where's the friction and the advancement in that? So become who you are, learn to play with others, seek out relationships that bother you, and learn to work with those people, and learn to be worked with. Another element of developing as a jazz ensemble is to listen to good music. Put your mind and your heart into beautiful things. As it relates to justice, listen to Cornel West. I mean, he's got this, there's so many beautiful videos of him talking. There's this one where it's called the Unexamined Life, where he's just sort of freestyling off of some ideas in a cab. Check that out. Read Ibram X. Kendi's new book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. Listen to music that you don't normally listen to. Be around other conversations that make you feel uncomfortable. I think that's really important for, especially white people, when we're collaborating around ideas of justice. A lot of times we sort of co-opt the room and we make the issue about our comfort, not about the actual idea that's being put on the table. I was talking to some friends, some activists yesterday, because part of my process in terms of presenting is to go around and ask people questions, and I tell them, yeah, I agreed to do this justice thing, and they go, is it mostly white people? Yeah. So what are you going to say? I don't know. I just don't feel like we really have a sense of what justice is. It's kind of like this partitioned off thing. We kind of think that some people, some people are just peace and justice people, and most of us are not. And so, but this one person was talking about some situations in a room where the white person got their feelings hurt, and so the room had to shift from the larger conversation to taking care of the white person. Now, I mean, we have feelings. I'm not saying I don't believe in being kind and human, but we have to learn how to kind of not co-opt the space in the moment and derail the conversation. So becoming who you are, learning to play with others, and then putting your mind in unconventional spaces, reading, listening more, reading, and then I think the fourth thing would be to go where the music takes you. That's what's happening here. They have chord changes, but they are going where the music takes them. Now that's going to take courage, That's going to take practice. So in the end, I guess I would say that justice is a process. It's not necessarily an outcome, and we have to deal with it as a creative process of becoming more sensitive to things we don't know about and we haven't experienced, to be around people who have had those experiences, to learn more, to create collaborations that are actually angling toward injustices. So justice is a process. It's not an outcome. It's a practice. It's an orientation. We will never get to any kind of equitable, just Chattanooga unless we practice the process of justice, which is very similar to jazz. A lot of people look at jazz and they think it's just kind of unfettered kind of randomness, when actually there's a process going on. Each one of these musicians is both a leader and a follower. And this is a creative room, right? Creative Mornings, we know creativity, but for somehow when it comes to social problems, we don't employ the instincts that we cultivate on a daily basis in the community. And I'm inviting you to do that, and to hang out with other people that you feel uncomfortable with, and to collaborate and to create some music. Be willing to receive feedback. So if I were to apply a title to this talk, I think I would call it The Art of Making Fire. And I would call it The Art of Making Fire because justice is a process. And there's an old parable about the inventor of fire. I think helps both describe the situation that we're in and describes the process that we can kind of move into. The inventor of fire went to this snow-clad regions of the world, and he went to this first community and he taught them the benefits of making fire. And these people loved it. They really took to it. They learned how to cook, how to stay warm. They could dance by the fire. There was all kinds of things that they could do. And after they learned the art of making fire, they looked around and the inventor had left. The inventor was not all that interested in recognition. The inventor was more interested in teaching the art of making fire. So the inventor went to another village. Same thing happened. People were mesmerized. People just loved what fire could do in their life. Only in this village, the high priest got a little nervous with the way in which the people were talking about the inventor. And they felt threatened that this inventor would have a hold on the people that would take power away from them. And so they killed him. And so as not to cause a stir among the people, they commissioned a book called The Life of the Inventor. And they also celebrated the inventor's life every year. And so that people could remember their feelings about the inventor. But in that process, they forgot the art of making fire. We're kind of in that situation, I think. We know lots of ideas about justice. We know lots of ideas, definitions, but we have lost the art of making fire. Jazz is about making fire. Collaboration is about making fire. Whatever it is whatever creative problem that you are working with in your office, there's probably a lot of arguing and a lot of hurt feelings, but in the end, there is fire. We have actually in this city every resource that we need in order to solve almost any problem that we have here. We just don't have the relationships. We just don't have the relationships. A lot of that is ego, a lot of that is fear, a lot of that is even what's showing up in this room. This city is going to soon be a city half of color. It's not going to be white. That's an opportunity. It's a profound opportunity. It's kind of almost banal and sort of annoying to constantly hear this idea that there are two Chattanoogas. There's actually one Chattanooga, but half of Chattanooga calls the shots. And so that's the problem. If there were two Chattanoogas, then that might actually be a better world, because then that other Chattanooga could do what it felt like it needed to do, but it can't. I mean, on some level it can. We're not using both sides of our brain. Why do I think Chattanooga is ready for this practice of justice? As I said, the demographic is changing. I also think that we exist in a scale, we're a mid-sized city, that we can see the results of our work. I also think that the predominant feature, as exhibited here in this room, in terms of the younger set of people, is creativity. So we got a lot of creativity. We have a scale that we can actually see our results. If we were in Atlanta or New York, I think our programs and our ideas would kind of go into dissolution. A lot of those larger municipalities, in my experience, look for ideas that come out of mid-sized cities like Chattanooga and Knoxville, which was where I spent a lot of my time. So I'm actually inviting you to practice justice and to be in dialogue and in conversation with people who make you feel uncomfortable. I can help you locate those kind of conversations. I can help convene them. My friend Genesis does it on a daily. We have our own conversations at different coffee shops, and you're welcome to sit with us. But I'm calling you in the end to not think of justice as a one-off thing, but as a practice. And I invite you to practice it. As an epilogue, if I were to critique some of my ideas, I would say that while I think the core issue in our community is racism, and I feel like Kendi does an excellent job of really kind of breaking down an approach to how to be an anti-racist. Racism does not, as we commonly think of, it's not just bad racist people that we need to round up and remove. Racism is perpetuated by racist ideas that even good people can put forward, and even black people can put forward. And so a lot of the injustice that shows up in our community is embedded in the policies, the ideas, the ways, the protocols. This is the way in which we could, as a creative class, really begin to interrogate these policies and propose something different. Also, we're in the Bible Belt. So there's a lot of ideas that the church puts forward that I think are racist. They don't mean to, but they are. For example, when a person identifies a blessing, a white person, on some level that can be misconstrued white privilege. In other words, you feel like God is favoring you because of some fortunate thing. And I'm not saying God isn't, but God isn't going to use white privilege to have a conversation with you. He's just not. And there are churches that promote that idea. And that's heretical. It's wrong. It's racist. So what do? Go cuss them out? No, that doesn't work. But I think that we can have these kind of conversations and we can begin to interrogate the ideas and the policies that we have. Thank you for listening to what I have to say.